All right, PPLers, welcome to our playoff edition of PPL Live. We're here for the Final Four. The teams have been set. The Fantastic Four of the PPL are in place. And now they will make war to decide a Pantheon Cup champion for the 2017 season in the Pantheon Cup 9 matchup. We're going to jump into this a little differently. We're not going to do the matchups. These matchups are going to be over 2 weeks long. So I'm not going to really try to predict these matchups. It's kind of hard to predict 2 weeks worth of matchups. So we're just going to go along with the tail of the tape and give some insight into the matchups that are going to be ongoing. We're going to start with number 4 seeded, the Gaff Attack. The Gaff had a great start to the season. The Gaff actually started the season 5-1. Big wins over Appease the Gods, Patty's Twins, and the Argonauts in that early stretch of wins. They were winning games. I mean, in the week 4, they had a 165-point outburst against Big C's Comeback Kids. In their matchup against Patty's Twins, I think Todd Gurley had a season high. I think he had almost 40 points. So the Gaff has had vintage performances early on in the season that pretty much displayed that this team was probably going to be a playoff team, if not a conference champion. However, as interconference warfare went on, they kind of started to fall off. Losses to the Mean Machine and Only for the Boss were crucial losses, as was a pivotal Week 9 loss to Appease the Gods, which may have, for all intents and purposes, decided the Omega Conference. But the Gav has been pretty impressive throughout the season, thanks mainly to number 1 receiver DeAndre Hopkins and Todd Gurley. I mean, those two guys are probably been the main pieces and cogs. Zach Ertz's performance is another big reason why the Gaff got where he got. And then Kirk Cousins being able to supplement some good weeks at quarterback were also a very big deal. Looking forward into the season, the Gaff kind of skated in, or looking forward into the postseason. The Gaff skated in. They lost, let's see here, basically lost 5 of their last 7. And, squeaked in thanks to an Argonaut victory over the Mean Machine, who they have the tiebreaker over based on total points. So the Gaff got an extra reprieve, a lifeline, so to speak, to get to the Final Four, and they have the ability to do a lot of damage. Looking at their roster, they're easily a team that could, run away with the Pantheon Cup title. Looking up, Leonard Fournette has to play well. It's going to be tough for him over the next 2 weeks. The Texans and the Seahawks have pretty solid run defenses. So it's going to be interesting to see how Leonard Fournette overcomes that ankle issue and, runs over the next 2 games in these pivotal matchups. Another guy is obviously Todd Gurley. The schedule also gets tougher for him. Philly and Seattle have pretty good run defenses. So it's going to be very important that he is able to establish himself and get some yardage running. And I think against either team, he'll be fine. He has receiving ability, and he's a goal line back, so he'll punch it in from the 1 yard line if the Rams get down there. So I think Gurley is going to be a guy that you can close your eyes and expect him to do what he's been doing all season long. Zach Ertz and Alshon Jeffrey, the Eagles combo for the Gaff. They seem to that's a lot of eggs in that basket, but Carson Wentz has played well enough that you can understand why the Gaff would want to have 2 guys on probably one of the highest flying offenses the league has seen in some time. I think that's going to be a very, very big part of the matchup with the Argonauts, because the Argonauts have Wentz as their quarterback on the other side. So if the Gaff can, if those touchdowns go to Ertz and Jeffrey, that swings this matchup in the Gaff's favor big time. Looking at over, he ended up with a 7-6 season. They scored 1,600 plus points, second highest scoring team in the PPL. Despite the late season doldrums, they were still one of the most dangerous teams in the league. They even lost a heartbreaker to the Twins when they put up about 147. So some of these losses that the Gaff had was just a week where their opponent really came to play and were able to score that big upset. Moving forward, they're in the position to score the upset over the defending Pantheon Cup champions. This is a rematch of Pantheon Cup 2, where the Gaff actually won that matchup. It was a Cinderella story, and he was able to, the clock didn't strike midnight for him in that matchup, and I'm guessing he's hoping for more magic in 2017, although 2010 was a long, long time ago. Looking at my number 3 team, we're going to get into the number 3 team, Big C's Comeback Kids. This team has probably been the most impressive throughout the regular season. They played every matchup about as well as you can expect a team to do, and they were rewarded. They made the PPL playoffs after being the team that was on the bottom end of the tiebreakers. They were the lowest scoring team to make the playoffs among the teams that were jockeying for the final 2 spots. But they found ways to win. I'm looking at their scores early in the season: 93, 110, 98, 102. But then they had big weeks against Only for the Boss and the Baby Gas team, where they put up 142 and 130. The kids just found ways to win week in and week out. They had a 137-point performance against the United Players. And although they started very hot, they also limp into the playoffs, losing 4 of their last 6. So we'll see if they are able to get the point total going back up. They did start struggling to score late in the season, and they get appease the gods, who they've seen twice this year. They beat them in week 5, but lost to them for the Omega Conference title in week 13. For the kids, it's been a plug and play all year. I mean, Deshaun Watson started it off for them, helped them keep their head above water in tough pivotal matchups. And then guys like Devonta Freeman, Frank Gore, and Michael Crabtree, just kept the scoring going. Evan Ingram was always a guy that we, PPL Live throughout the season, we gave a lot of props to, because it's hard to find a good tight end, and Ingram was able to do that. And I think he's going to continue to do that with Eli Manning back in the lineup for the Giants. So Ingram could be an anomaly in this matchup for the Comeback Kids. But it was an interesting season for them. They had some great games. And some great performances. And as an owner, Emmanuel Carter was the best the PPL had. But moving forward is going to really come down to plug and plays again. I'm looking at the kids' roster for this matchup. And it's one where you look at it, and at first glance, you have really no reservations about it. You think that this matchup or this lineup probably won't do much. But the kids have done this all year. They've put lineups out there. Guys like Marquise Goodwin, guys like Jameis Winston, who have underperformed, or Marquise Goodwin, who hasn't done much. And then even the Jermaine Kearse pickup, a guy that, he's hot right now, and he picked him up off of the waiver wire. So he's kind of hoping that these guys can continue the success that they found in previous weeks. But that being said, the kids have been one of the best teams at finding that diamond in the rough. And if it continues in the PPL playoffs, they have a pretty good chance of upsetting Appease the Gods. The kids play week to week better than any owner. So in a 2-week matchup, they may be at an advantage that's not really being dissected. So the Comeback Kids, they've done well acquiring players all year. I loved the Kenyon Drake pickup, and Drake has been a guy that has really helped them close the season strong as far as scoring goes. So that's a good sign for them. Jarvis Landry and Samaje Perine were also guys who were big time contributors for them. So it's going to be interesting to see how they decide to go with their lineup for the playoffs. This is their first playoff appearance. They've never been in the PPL playoffs before, so it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to a 2-week matchup rather than the traditional 1-week matchups. That being said, the kids have a very good chance of winning this matchup, although it would appear that Appease the Gods has a huge advantage. I think the kids, they have a pretty good chance. They're just going to have to continue to do what they've been doing and hit right on these plays, because even this week, their matchups aren't too far apart. I really like Marquise Goodwin and his matchup. I don't know about Kearse at Denver, but I do like Goodwin at Houston. They have a poor pass defense. And Garoppolo peppered this guy with 8 catches last week. So Goodwin's a guy that's probably going to be able to get free, and I think that's going to help the Comeback Kids out, at least to keep this matchup close going on over into the second part of the matchup.